You remember the version of yourself she first fell for? You were grounded, certain. You had that quiet confidence that didn't need the room to validate it. She used to look at you differently, like you were the most solid thing in her world. And somewhere between then and now, that changed. You can feel it in how she talks to you, in the slight edge in her voice when you hesitate, in the way a conversation that used to feel easy now feels like negotiating a minefield. You're not sure when it happened. You're not sure what you did. But you can feel that something shifted, and it scares you more than you want to admit. You're lying in bed thinking, does she still respect me? Or maybe it's, why does everything I do feel wrong lately? Or maybe it's, I used to feel like her person. Now I feel like a problem she's trying to manage. Here's the truth most people never get told, and this one might sting a little before it helps. Women don't lose respect for men because the attraction wore off. They lose respect when the man they fell for disappears. Slowly, quietly, usually without either of you realizing it's happening, and gets replaced by a version of him that's shrinking. You're not a bad partner. You're not someone who stopped caring. You're someone who picked up some patterns that are quietly eroding the foundation of the dynamic between you. And nobody ever showed you what those patterns actually look like from the inside. That changes today. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what those 7 things are, why they work against you at the psychological level, and what the man she actually respects does differently, in real, practical terms you can use immediately. Let's get into it. Before we get into the 7 things, I need to give you a frame that changes everything about how you're going to hear this list. Because without it, you might try to fix behaviors on the surface, while the real issue stays exactly where it is. Most men, when they sense a woman pulling away or losing respect, do one of 2 things. They either try harder, more effort, more gestures, more tension, more questions, or they pull back, go cold, and try to look unbothered. And both of those strategies fail, not because the men are wrong to want her back, but because they're responding to the wrong problem. Here's the real truth. Respect in a relationship isn't primarily about what you do. It's about who she experiences you to be. When things are uncertain, when there's pressure, when life gets hard, your partner's nervous system is reading you constantly. Not your words, not your intentions, but your energy, your groundedness, your consistency under stress. And when she doesn't feel a bedrock beneath you, when she senses that her mood shifts yours, that her approval runs your decisions, that her doubts destabilize you, something in her goes quiet, not because she's punishing you, but because something deep and animal in her is saying, this doesn't feel safe to lean on. What looks like disrespect is usually a woman who has stopped feeling secure. And what makes her feel secure isn't perfection. It isn't grand gestures. It isn't a man who never struggles. It's a man who knows who he is, even when she's uncertain. A man who stays present when it gets uncomfortable. A man whose identity doesn't collapse every time she challenges him. The anxious avoidance cycle, where the more she pulls away, the more he chases, and the more he chases, the more suffocated she feels, starts right here, in the space where his sense of self depends on her approval. And when you understand this, every single thing on this list makes a different kind of sense. Okay, let's go. Number 1. You say things you don't do. Most men don't realize that in the economy of a relationship, words are almost worthless. Actions are the currency, and every time you say you're going to do something and don't, every time you promise a conversation and avoid it, say you'll change something and don't, tell her she matters, and then spend 3 hours on your phone, you are making a deposit into what I'd call the doubt account. And bro, that account fills up faster than you think. Here's the deeper truth. She's not keeping score because she's petty. She's keeping score because her nervous system is doing exactly what it evolved to do, scanning for whether or not you are reliable, whether she can relax around you, whether this relationship is a place she can lower her guard, or a place she needs to stay alert in. Inconsistency between your words and your actions answers that question for her. And the answer it gives her is, stay alert. Think about the difference between these two versions of the same man. Version 1 says, I hear you, I'm going to work on that. And 2 weeks later, nothing has changed. Version 2 says, I hear you. I'm not going to make you a promise I'm not sure I can keep right now. But here's one thing I'm committing to today. That's it. That's the whole shift. Not louder promises, not bigger pledges, just the quiet, grounded honesty of a man who only says what he means. And when you do that, when your word becomes something she can actually wait and trust, something in her relaxes around you in a way that no conversation, no date night, no grand gesture ever creates. She starts thinking, he actually means what he says. And that thought is the beginning of real respect. Number 2, you collapse when she pushes back. This one is subtle, and it is one of the most respect-destroying patterns that exists in modern relationships. Because it looks like flexibility on the surface, but it's something very different underneath. Most men have been told, somewhere along the way, that being agreeable, accommodating, and easygoing makes them good partners. And in small doses, it does. But there's a version of agreeableness that isn't about genuine flexibility. It's about avoiding conflict at any cost. It's about changing your position the moment she expresses displeasure. It's about abandoning your perspective the second she pushes back. Not because she made a better argument, but because her emotional discomfort feels unbearable to you. And here's what she actually feels in that moment. Her brain isn't registering, wow, he's so understanding. Her brain is registering, his position has no ground under it. What looks like consideration feels, at the nervous system level, like instability. Like a tree that bends all the way to the ground when the wind blows and doesn't come back upright. Here's the contrast. Most couples have a moment where she challenges something, a decision, an opinion, a plan. The man who loses her respect says, you're right, whatever you want. Not because he agrees, but because the tension feels unbearable. The man who keeps her respect says, I hear you. I don't actually see it the same way, and here's why. But I want to understand your side. Calm, grounded, not combative, not defensive. Just present and honest about where he stands. Here's what changes everything in that second response. She didn't get her way, but she felt something. She felt a man who is solid, and that feeling is worth more to her, long-term attraction and respect, than agreement ever will be. Number 3, you need her to be okay so that you can be okay. Here's the part no one talks about. This is the pattern that looks like love from the inside and looks like emotional dependency from the outside. And it is quietly one of the most exhausting things a woman can experience in a long-term relationship. Most couples fall into a dynamic where one partner's emotional state becomes the emotional weather system for the whole relationship. He wakes up and checks her mood before he checks his own. If she's distant, he spirals. If she's frustrated, he interprets it as a referendum on himself. If she's happy, he finally exhales. Her emotional state has become his emotional regulation system, and she can feel that weight on her without even being able to name it. And that weight feels like this. I can't even have a bad day without him making it about us. That quiet inner thought is one of the most damaging things that can move through a woman's mind in a relationship, because it means she can no longer be fully human around you. She has to manage your feelings while having her own. That's exhausting. And over time, that exhaustion turns into distance. Here's what it looks like in practice. She comes home in a flat mood, not angry, not upset at him, just tired and internal. Version 1 of this man says immediately, "What's wrong? Did I do something?" And now she has to take care of his anxiety while she's still dealing with whatever her day brought. Version 2 says gently, "Rough day? I'm right here if you want to talk. No pressure." That's it. That's the shift. He's present. He's not threatened by her mood. He's available without being needy for her to reassure him. When you stop needing her to be okay in order to be okay yourself, something extraordinary happens. She stops feeling like your emotional caretaker and starts feeling like your partner. That's when the real intimacy starts. Number 4, you've stopped having a life outside of her. And this is one that men feel the most confused about, because they've been told that prioritizing her, being present, making her feel chosen, all of that is what a good partner does. And it is. But there's a line between choosing her and disappearing into her. And when you cross that line, something shifts. Most men, when they fall deep into a relationship, slowly contract. The guys' nights happen less. The gym falls off. The passion project they used to talk about with a light in their eyes gets quieter. Not because he stopped caring about those things, but because she became the center of gravity for everything. His identity, his mood, his purpose, his social world. And without realizing it, he stopped being the person she was attracted to and became someone who needs her attention like a plant needs sunlight. Here's the deeper truth. Attraction, real, sustained, long-term attraction, is built on a foundation of two full people who choose each other. Not two people who complete each other in the romanticized sense, but two people who each have their own aliveness, their own direction, their own depth, and who bring that aliveness into the relationship. When you stop having that, there's nothing for her to be pulled toward. You become familiar. And familiarity without vitality quietly kills desire and respect at the same time. Think about the version of you she was most attracted to, not just physically, but energetically. You were probably moving toward something. You had opinions. You had passions. You had a sense of direction that didn't depend on her for its fuel. The man she respects isn't the one who abandoned all of that to orbit around her. He's the man who kept building himself and invited her into that life. When you reclaim that man, when she can feel that you have something burning in you that exists regardless of whether she approves, she doesn't feel replaced. She feels drawn in. And that is a completely different energy than anything you can manufacture by trying harder. Number 5. You avoid hard conversations until they explode. This one is where so many relationships quietly die. Not in the big arguments, in all the small moments of silence before them. Most couples believe that avoiding conflict is the same thing as keeping the peace. It isn't. Emotional distance in a relationship isn't like a wall that goes up in one dramatic moment. It's like scar tissue that forms slowly over 100 small moments that never got addressed, never got repaired, never got spoken out loud. Every time something bothers you and you swallow it, every time something needs to be said and you decide it's not worth the fight, you're not protecting the relationship. You're making a withdrawal from it. And those withdrawals compound. Here's the thing about avoidance that nobody explains. It doesn't feel like fear from the inside. It feels like being reasonable. It feels like being the bigger person. It feels like, I don't want to be one of those couples who fights about everything. But the message it sends her, especially over time, is he doesn't think this relationship is worth the discomfort of honesty. And gradually, she stops bringing things to you. She stops expecting you to show up for the harder conversations. She starts handling her emotional world alone. And loneliness inside a relationship is a form of disrespect that moves in only one direction. Here's the contrast. Most couples have a moment where something sits unaddressed for days, and it festers into something bigger than it needed to be. The man who loses her respect keeps waiting for the right time until it explodes. The man she respects says, calmly and without drama, "Hey, there's something on my mind. Can we talk about it tonight? Nothing serious, just want to be honest with you. That sentence, that willingness, that's it. Not louder arguments, not more compromising, not a weekly scheduled check-in. Just two people who have built enough safety that honesty doesn't feel like an attack. Because one of them started practicing it, even when it was uncomfortable. When you become the man who doesn't let things fester, the man she knows she can trust to say the real thing without it turning into a war, the walls between you start to come down, without either of you having to force it. Number 6, you let your emotions run you in conflict. Here's the part most men genuinely don't see, because from the inside, it feels like passion. It feels like caring. It feels like you're fighting for the relationship. But from the outside, from her side of the room, it looks like something very different. Most couples have a dynamic where conflict becomes an emotional escalation race, where the louder the voices get, the less anyone is actually heard, and where the argument that started about the weekend plans has quietly become about something neither of you can even name anymore. Your nervous system in a conflict is like a smoke detector. It cannot tell the difference between your partner raising her voice in frustration and actual danger. So it sounds the alarm. Your heart rate spikes. Your thinking brain goes offline. And suddenly, you're not having a conversation anymore. You're reacting. And here's what she's feeling in that moment. Not heard. Not met. Something in her is registering. He can't hold this. He can't hold me when it gets hard. I have to be careful about how much I feel around him. That is one of the most corrosive thoughts a woman can have in a relationship, because it means she's managing herself around you instead of trusting you with herself. And that management over time becomes emotional withdrawal, becomes silence, becomes the thing you feel in a room when two people have stopped trying to reach each other. Here's the contrast. She says something that stings. Maybe it's unfair. Maybe it's loaded with an old pattern between you. Version 1 of this man fires back immediately, louder, more defensive, matching the temperature. The argument goes sideways. Version 2 pauses, takes one breath, says, I hear that you're frustrated. I'm not going to match that energy. Tell me what's actually going on. That pause, that one beat of self-regulation is the most powerful thing you can do in a conflict. It is not weakness. It is the hardest and most attractive thing in the world. When you become the man who stays grounded when she's storming, not dismissive, not cold, but present and regulated, she stops feeling alone in the conflict and starts feeling like she has someone to actually work through things with. That's when real repair becomes possible. Number 7, you've stopped seeing her. And this is the last one. And quietly, it might be the most important one on this entire list. Most couples, somewhere in the long middle of a relationship, stop actually seeing each other. Not in the dramatic way, not in the way that ends in a fight or a tearful conversation. in the quiet, daily way. The way you can sit across the dinner table from someone you love and be present in body and completely absent everywhere else. The way you stop noticing what lights her up, what weighs her down, what she's quietly proud of, what she's silently struggling with. The way she becomes the background of your life rather than one of the main reasons for it. Here's the deeper truth. Women are extraordinarily attuned to whether or not they're truly seen by their partners. Not just noticed, not just taken care of, but genuinely witnessed. It's not about grand gestures. Intimacy isn't built in the big moments. It's built in the 30-second ones. When you put your phone down and actually look at her. When you remember the detail she mentioned 3 days ago and bring it back. When you ask a question that proves you've been paying attention. When you reach over, not because you want something, but just because she's there and she's yours, and you still choose her on an ordinary Tuesday. Here's what most couples do instead. He asks, "How was your day?" while scrolling. She gives a surface answer because she already knows he's half there. And both of them settle into a comfortable parallel existence that slowly feels less like a relationship and more like a domestic arrangement. And somewhere in the back of her mind, the thought she can barely name starts to form. He used to really see me. I wonder if he still does. The man she respects doesn't do more. He does less, but with his whole attention. He asks one real question and actually listens to the answer. He notices when something is off before she has to say it. He looks at her in a way that says, "I chose you today, not just on the day I proposed, but today." That is not a skill. That is a decision. And you can make it right now. When you bring that quality of presence back, when she feels truly seen again in the small moments, something she maybe forgot was still there, starts to come back toward you. Not because you earned it, because you remembered who you were to her. And that changes everything. Here's what I want you to take from this. This isn't a checklist. It's a mirror. And what you've seen in this mirror isn't a man with a list of failures. It's a man who picked up some patterns that were never actually him, and who now has the awareness to lay them down. The man who stops collapsing under pressure, who means what he says, who stays grounded when it's hard, who keeps his own aliveness, who has the courage to be honest, who regulates himself in conflict, and who chooses to truly see her. That man doesn't have to chase respect. He becomes someone respect naturally moves toward. When you internalize this, you stop performing and start being. And your partner will feel that shift before you've even said a word about it. Real love isn't something that happens to you. It's something you build every single day on purpose by deciding again and again to be the man worth staying for.